discussion.
just a chit chat, get to know each other, and it's supposed to be, it's an open mic, so it means that anybody can talk anything, but of course, it's within the topics lah. So I think today it's only about 60 minutes. There isn't any Q&A or even things like somebody talk, they ask the question to the particular person. It's not a panel discussion. So today is more of like, I think why we wanted to start this series is actually very simple. Just before moments ago, we were talking to Darius. Darius is a friend of ours lah. It seems that there's a lot of retrenchment, and the tech industry got hit quite badly. I think there are more, especially for those companies. If they make announcement about retrenchment, that's one thing. There's talking about you are having a full-time job, and then you suddenly lost a job. But what a lot of companies are not telling is that they actually convert a lot of full-timer into maybe part-time, into maybe contract worker. So so theoretically, it's actually not retrenchment. So the numbers are actually much higher than what we thought it is. Yeah, so I think which is why initiated sort of like this conversation. I know that today is more of a couple of topics talking about between startups and working in a big corporations. Probably can it be a larger company or can be a startup. I think today is just open for all. So it doesn't really matter, who comes in first or who goes out later, or do you need to stay throughout the whole 60 minutes. So maybe to kickstart, I think there are quite a few people here. Maybe to kickstart, well, we can always probably kick off with Jessie. You want to take it off first?
Anyway, maybe I will just add in basically the topic for today is exploring work life in startup versus big corporation. So this is the topic that we will actually discuss today. I think usually for this topic, I think the main thing is probably people over here, you actually work in like startup before, or you also work in big corporation before, or you are someone who actually want to learn a little bit more what are the differences, things like that. Yeah, so I think the first thing that we can actually talk about would be like, I mean, based on the experience that you guys have, right? What is the main difference that you feel between working in a startup versus a big corporation? What is the thing that actually sort of like ingrained in your mind, based on the past experience? Yeah, probably we can actually talk about that.
Okay, maybe I'll share my experience since this is a topic which I'm quite familiar with. I started my career in the big boys, HP, Dell, Zebra, Vertiv. And then after that, I went into a startup environment, which is Tunes, my own educational consultancy, and now my business consultancy and business coaching business as well. So I would say that a great difference between them is the scope of your work. In a big corporation, the scope is relatively limited, but it's very deep. So let's say, for example, doing product marketing for HP and Dell, you're expected to be an expert in that. You're expected to go end to end from start to finish to develop a strategy. But the execution of the strategy doesn't fall on you. You'll go on to the marketing team, you'll go on to the sales team, there'll be another team helping you sales enablement. So that's big corporation. When I entered into Tunes, which is my first startup environment, it's a different ballgame altogether. After building a strategy, you are expected to get hands dirty somehow or other. I mean, it's not enough to know how to create a strategy based on the external market trends. You must know very, very well your internal systems, what will work, what doesn't work. And a lot of it is on stakeholder management. A lot of it is on, is local, you say, tam xiong. You must have good relationship with all the stakeholders so that your whatever you say you want to do will come to pass. If you miss that element, there is no fallback. You cannot tell your boss and tell you escalate because you are the owner of your domain. So I would say, in a broad stroke, that would be the two key differences which strike me as going from a big corporation into a startup environment.
I think, yeah, definitely agree. My experience is like, working in the big corporation, basically the key idea is like you are actually managing more vendors rather than you doing it yourself. So it's more about managing stakeholders, stakeholder management. That's what I feel. Like for example, as easy as like booking a flight, you have to go through like a vendor and someone will have to actually make a booking for you. But of course, when you work in the startup itself, a lot of things you have to actually do it by yourself. So as dirty as like administrative work, stuff like that. So there are a whole big picture to actually look at rather than just doing a small part in the organization. Yeah. So I mean that's what I actually felt also.
I think one of the biggest, between big companies and startups, I think the freedom is definitely there, and perhaps because of the kind of freedom, you probably allow people to have a bit more time to think and plan. Well, not that it's a bad thing or it's a good thing. Like for example, I think in the startup environment, things are probably not very scheduled as like in the big corporation. I mean, previously I used to work in the big corporations also. I also work with Palm and a whole bunch of Palm PDA, all those guys. Those are more structured in the sense that if there's a meeting, there's a meeting. So everybody will need to do preparations. But when you're talking about in the startup, you sometimes you just don't have any so-called scheduled meeting. Anybody just walk in and say, hey, this is an emergency, let's have a meeting. So you tend to have things have to be really on your toe when you're on a startup. But whereas on a big corporations, I think it's pretty different. In the sense that it's pretty scheduled. Very rarely you have something that just pop up overnight. So this also means that people, the stress level is definitely high. Well, you can't really compare apple to apple, but definitely stress level is definitely high when you're on the startup. But then again, the environment sort of drives you a bit more. But if you were to ask me, do I prefer structure or not structure? I think it all depends on how comfortable are you after working in the big corporations. I think the transitions from a big corporations to a startup can actually be very tough for a lot of people. Yeah. So for those who just joined, welcome. Basically, this is basically an open mic. So anybody can come in. It's not necessarily only one or two speaker. So we just kick off a couple of topics. So Jason was doing an introduction earlier about what is it today, and we just started talking with Darius talking about between the big corporations and startup. So feel free to chip in and then just don't have to put up hand or whatever. Just unmute yourself and then just go ahead and talk. Michael, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my name is Michael Rubio. You may call me Mike. I've been running a startup for almost 4 years. It's a brick and mortar startup in the construction space. But before that, I've spent about 20 years working for corporate. And I really made a very strong intention and acted upon it to change how work will be in our startup versus my experience in corporate, which I must say wasn't very fun in terms of in terms of work, time. Basically, what I tried to remove is the commute. We're all working remotely here in Metro Manila. Also, I have a number of employees scattered all over our Philippine archipelago. There's a lot of islands here, so we're pretty scattered. But even when we were all in the metropolis, we chose not to have a main office and show up, which was convenient because we started in March 2020, about 2 weeks before the first lockdown. Um, but I must say this is what I wanted. Back in when I was in corporate, I was with a number of national corporations, like national owned by the major national corporations, and a number of transnational corporations. The thing that I enjoy the least is the feeling that I had to warm my seat. And if my seat isn't warm, then the perception is I'm not working. Yeah, that was very, very frustrating to me because I worked very, very fast. I was very, very efficient in my time with my time, and I really had nothing left to do. Sometimes even if it was still in the morning, and I must say I was twice as productive as my peers, and I was not rewarded for it. I felt I was being punished for productivity instead of being rewarded. So that was what I wanted to eliminate because, and I realized I spent the traffic in Manila being what it is. I really wasted at least a good hour spent in traffic that I could have spent with my family. So all of these things, added up. And as even as a senior manager, the heading departments, I still felt I didn't have that enough power to just say fuck it and leave the office without consequence because your visibility is so important. Even if I was like really the boss, the owner's pet, it only it's still worse. You're only still hired because you're the gossip, right? You're abusing your closest with the owner. You're acting like a family member, or something like that, or you're the chosen one. So there's it's clearly annoying. It's so upsetting for me. So I really made sure that my organization wouldn't be like that. So um so yeah, we have no man. We can still meet during Saturdays because in the engineering sector, Saturday is the office day. So like Mondays through Fridays, all the engineers are in the project sites, and Saturday is where they do the all hands, the face the the results, operations meetings, all the office stuff happens during Saturdays. And then the thing is, in a lot of these offices, a lot of these organizations, even if you're not part of that operation, you're still mandated to show up on Saturday if there's nothing for you to do. So it was, oh my God, I hated it so much. So he, right now, all meetings for me in our organization is by appointment. If it's not scheduled, it's not happening. It's not happening. But the only requirement is that if it's even during on a Saturday, on a Sunday, um, it is reasonable for your people to reach out to you for messages or calls. It's reasonable for that's all. But you're not mandated to be online. You're not mandated to be seen. There's no one's looking over your shoulder ever. So because I really am reacting against my own experience and I hated it.
So, Michael, so if given an opportunity, which one are you more comfortable? I will assume whatever that you're now doing, right?
Oh, for sure. And I felt like I can only do this because I'm running. I'm the CEO. That's the only way I can get away with this. That's why I feel like I have to succeed because I can't go back.
I think one of the biggest challenges is that well perhaps some of us who are slightly older, there's no such thing as startup last time. When we start working means you start working, then suddenly there's this thing that pop up saying, hey, there's a startup, you can actually start your own business. So to some, it's like running a business is running a business. It's got nothing to do with startup. But apparently, running a startup is very different from running your own, own small business. I think the mindset and everything. So question to the floor, I mean, so if given a chance, let's say the moment you graduated from schools, whatever, could you actually consider running a startups or go work for someone else, gain some experience before you run the startups? I mean, there's no right or wrong. Opinion?
Sorry. I'll just my 2 cents. For a fresh grad in these days, my advice normally is to join a startup because when you're in there, you learn the end-to-end process of customer journey. Your value these days is not really in the creation or in the nitty-gritty menial work. These days is understanding how your customers go from being a prospect into a customer and what is the value add to the whole process. So that in a startup will give you the big picture view of how it goes from A to B. In a big corporation, although a good brand name for you, but you'll find that eventually you'll be very siloed into a particular function. So my suggestion normally is for kids these days, go into a startup and start learning the A and B, the customer journey from A to B.
Good advice.
May, you have something to share?
Yeah, so the thing is, I've never worked for I've never entered the corporate world before, just because I realized from a very young age that I probably wouldn't survive a week. Just cause I'm a very straightforward person. Yeah. So that's why the most I ever did was part-time, freelance kind of stuff. But I do believe that I think working for someone is invaluable before you start your own company, because because I'm a trainer as well. So I always tell my students, I said it's always best to work for someone first, because then your boss will be that your boss will be paying for all your mistakes, you see. So I always tell them to learn fast, break things, you know what I mean? Break things, and then you move fast. Move fast, break things. Yeah, that's right. Move fast, break things.
That's actually quite a good example. Learn from someone's mistake before
Yes,
you make
yes,
your own
yes.
mistake. Yeah.
Yes. I'm a very big believer of that. That's why I read so much, and that's why I sign up for a lot of courses, especially from people who have made many mistakes and then are doing very well now. Because I truly believe that no one person in this world can make all the mistakes in this world. Life is unfortunately not that long, huh? So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So just to show how many of you actually have no regrets, join a company, start and then after that only to leave the company to start your own business. I mean, anybody have any big regrets of that? I mean, that there's nothing wrong, right or wrong, because I do know friends who actually caught the startup bugs. They were like, hey, it seems like it's so easy to be a millionaire. And then they just ditched their, of course, they just ditched their job and then started to go into running their own startup. A few years later, lost a couple of dollars and then go back to join the workforce. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no shame in it. I think it's better to figure out what you really want, because I'm not quite sure. Do you see yourself as someone who actually wants to run your own business in the first place, or you're someone who actually started join your workforce and then only to realize, hey, a startup environment may probably be more suitable, or maybe we are still figuring out. What do you guys think?
There were no startups. There was no startup culture in the early 2000s in the Philippines. It only started really becoming a thing in around 2010, 2011, 2012. Startup Manila. So such experiences weren't available to at least to my generation. But do I have regrets? I wish there were opportunities like that when I was young, before I had a family. Because it's harder to make that call if you're already have a family to support. To take those risks when you're already responsible for more than just yourself. So that's what I say. You more than just when you're young, when you have less responsibility, where you can really absorb your failure or the failure of the organization you joined more readily when you're young with less responsibility. So perhaps a regret is I didn't have that kind of experience. But now that having gone through corporate, there are a lot of my fellow founders who aren't as experienced in corporate benefit from a lot of the management structures, all the stuff that they never got to learn because they're still in their early 30s doing running their own startups or being senior managers in your co-founders in their own startups. So there's a lot for me to contribute then. So there's no regret from that perspective.
I think in most cases, regardless of the path you choose, the regret is you'll be thinking of what might have been if you had chosen a different path. So for me personally, going from a corporate to a startup to my own business, what most people don't realize is that you lose a huge support in terms of insurance, in terms of things like medical insurance, which is a big thing for us. So before I make the move, there's a lot of things to consider in terms of parents, in terms of family and stuff like this. But at the end of the day, you can't let that stop you, because if there's something you want to try, just go ahead and do it. The worst come to worst, you lose a couple of dollars. It's not really life and death per se. And you have the control on when you want to cut short and go back into the corporate world. There are always jobs up there. So the trick is that how do you go back from start running your own business to a corporate world? People may think that it's considered as lost time, but I can tell from experience, it's not. The time you spend running your own business actually contributes a lot, especially going from a corporate to a startup environment, whether they want to take you up or not. One of the things which I realized when I was interviewing sometimes is that startups don't like people from big corporates if they're not in the right place to scale, because they see big corporates, people coming in as too process oriented, too red tape, too to do A you must do B first, and so on and so forth. So you know the standard conversation. Whereas if you come from your own business, you say that I had to do out of sequence, because we have to deal with firefighting, we have to deal with all the various aspects of it, and you come across as being stronger, not just as a corporate stooge, but as somebody who has the capability to learn on the go and to actually execute fast. So actually, in my opinion, it's not a loss; it's either a gain, in fact, especially if you come from a corporate background.
I think the best time to start is actually when you are studying. That's where you can actually do a lot of trial and error. You have, not, heavy responsibility, things like that. So I do agree, like starting young per se, but definitely there must be some checkpoint, milestone to check whether you are actually walking the right path. Because at the end of the day, there's still opportunity cost along the way. So if you are not really good as an entrepreneur, go back, to the corporate world, because to be honest, some people are not that good in entrepreneurship, and probably it's time to get some skill before you go back to the entrepreneurship. Because as long as you are an entrepreneur, have been wanting to be your own boss, things like that, it's pretty hard to actually stop a person from being their own boss eventually. People will still keep trying. Yeah, I mean, that's my take. I think if you ask me, the only regret is don't start it during when I'm still studying.
I think, I don't know. I think for me, the most important thing is I think the worst thing in life is to live with regrets. That's why I resonate with what Jeff Bezos said, you see. The one thing worst in life is to live with regrets. Mistakes, to me, I think it's part and parcel of life. To me, it's no different from a toddler learning to walk. The toddler, when they're learning to walk, I think you lose count how many times they fall, right? But they still get back up. So to me, that's how I see life in general, be it career, personal life, and all that. But what's important is that you learn from your mistakes, and you're honest with yourself. You don't do it because that's what all your friends are doing and all that. So if after a while, if you feel you're not cut out to be an entrepreneur, you go back to working for other people, is okay. What's important is that you are actually true to yourself. I don't think there's either right or wrong.
What is the one thing? I mean, for those that are running your own startup or join a startup or whatever, what would be the one thing that you miss when you were hired, in the big corporation? What would be the one thing that you miss?
Long lunch break.
I like that.
Really, I have been hearing a lot of friends in the corporate world taking like 2 hours, lunch break. But if you're running a startup, you know that 2 hours is impossible, except for lunch meeting.
Yeah.
It sounds as though your boss is driving you hard, Jaslyn.
Are you working for someone, Jaslyn? Are you?
No, she's her own boss.
Oh, she's her own boss. Okay, yeah. I was just wondering.
I think okay, long lunch hours is I think it's a bonus. I mean, for me, I think
you can schedule that if you want. If you really
yeah,
want to, you can schedule. I mean, if I wanted a long lunch break, that's really the great thing about being in a startup. If you are the entrepreneur, you can schedule what you want. Of course, if you're in at a phase where you can't afford to, that's another matter. If you're the super early stage and you're watching your your money burn, the burn rate is your own money, then you might feel like you don't deserve the long lunch. Uh, maybe that's even true, but you have the wherewithal to schedule your long lunch. So I miss nothing from.
I think for me is that it would be great if you really have scheduled annual leave. I mean, once you start running your own business, there's no such thing as annual leave to us. I mean, that's how I see it. If you need to travel, you need to travel. If you need to travel on a weekend or a public holiday, but if you happen to be working in the large corporations, if you travel on a Saturday, Sunday, or you fly back on a Saturday, Sunday, the HR will tend to tell you, okay, because you're away for during the weekend, during the public holiday, we add one more add one more day off day for you and everything. So it actually accumulates quite a lot. But I think once we started running your own business, I think it's always a bonus if you can even afford to take any annual leave or any off day.
True. But however, in my experience, the past 4 years, it depends on the kind of team you build. So
What, sorry?
right, the kind of team.
Oh,
You have
team. Okay.
yeah. So I have a strong team that we can cover for each other. I had to spend I got to spend like December, both my partners were in they were had to take vacations they can't afford not to take because of family or whatnot. So, and I know that if I had to take on such a thing, I have a strong team to who has my back, basically. So, those things you can plan for. Of course, it really the luck of the draw is you have good co-founders or you have that kind of projects. But theoretically, yes, you can plan for these things. You build the kind of team that you have the kind of trust, and I think you should trust, and then and you just take the needed break if you really need to. And you at this point, you're the only person who can judge such a thing. But I feel like it's in bad faith to say that I cannot.
Yeah.
Why do this? You cannot.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, I think the one thing about being I mean, when you own a startup is that um your time is completely yours to
Yes.
you know what I mean, to decide what to do. So now I'm trying to incorporate what my ex coach taught me was I don't know if you heard of Robin Sharma. So he was actually telling us you guys shouldn't work more than 5 hours a day. So I'm working in that direction, seeing some progress, but not 100% there yet. So yeah, he says you shouldn't be working more than 5 hours a day. So I'm like, okay, I'm working on that. Yeah.
That's a nice goal. Well, what I think where there are only really three things, important things you need to do. If you plan more than that, you're probably not going to be able to do it. You just
Yes.
focus on three major things. If you do anything else, there must be small stuff that you can just, last in first out on your email. But in terms of like things that move the
The
business
needle.
forward, the needle,
Yes.
the move
Yeah.
forward, just focus on the three things.
Yeah, three to five. Yeah, 3 to 5.
Yeah.
We were told. Yeah, 3 to 5
Yeah.
things. As long as it moves the needle, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You
And
can.
then
Yeah.
okay, if you've done that, don't call me, handle the rest. You can safely say that. So, but the thing is, you can take as much time as you need to accomplish these things during the day, but as long as you finish it, and then once you're done, then spend time with your child, spend time with your wife or your partner or whatnot, catch up, that binge that show. Don't deny yourself. The martyr saint founder. It's for me. It's a lot of posturing for the investors. You don't need, be authentic. Do whatever you need. But if that's part of your investor relations play, then that's your game. But the real thing is you can build in your rest and manage your time.
Mm. Mm.
No,
Okay.
I think indeed it's quite true. It's very true, and I think I'll circle back to what Jessie said about her not regretting not starting when she was studying. I do not really agree on starting your own business or startup when you're studying, because I've spoken to a lot of people who have done that route. The problem is that they lack the experience to know what is important and what is not. So everything becomes important. Everything is firefighting. They build quite bad habits. They see
Yeah.
things as a customer complaint. Oh, let's jump on this, and not knowing, is this an isolated incident or is it a process issue? And similarly with employee relations, HR, they get overwhelmed so badly, it becomes very demoralizing. And before you know it, they say, you know what, it's not for me. But it's not that they lack the ability or capability. What they lack is the experience and perhaps a mentor to guide them through the understanding of what they should be focusing on and what is just noise. So that's my 2 cents on it. If you have started when you're studying, there's a high possibility you have given up and never want to touch it again, simply because you've been burned so badly.
Well, I can see how that is true for some people, but I can also see May made the point, like you like fail early, sure, as long as the kind of failures that doesn't ruin other people's careers or ruin other people's lives, for sure. Those are really good mistakes, because one thing that you can't be learned, I think should be learned as early as possible is selling.
Yes.
If you learn that at an early age, it's such a superpower.
It is, it is, it is. I agree. That I think I can't remember the number, but they were saying there's a percentage of the CEOs from Fortune 500 companies. I don't know what the number is, but they were saying that they actually started out in sales.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah.
If I have to go back to corporate, that's the only place I'll probably want to go, is to go into sales,
Selling.
selling.
But we're selling every day, Michael. Like seriously, like when you ask a girl out, you are selling. Like
Yeah.
you are selling yourself,
Yeah. My coach
Yeah.
really framed that that's the best framework to use. It's really approach trying to create a romantic relationship. And in another peer of mine, which is really sales is just dating other men, because the girls us asking other dudes out. It just so happens that in a lot of cases, um procurement departments, the people you need to convince are a lot of men. It just so yeah. So it was just a joke, because a lot of us, as you can imagine, are are very homophobic, or so you don't like the jokes. So you have to laugh at something like that. But yes, it's really asking guys out, giving them a good time, and hoping they call back.
Indeed. I'll add one more point to it though. I would say besides selling, the other one would be
Mhm.
networking. Because selling is when you provide a service or product to somebody who has a problem, but networking is when you build a relationship even though they don't have a problem today. So I think these are the two key things which are very
And just
important.
part of the sales stack. Networking is, as far as we're concerned, is part of the sales stack. Because, like, just going out, using the apps, whatever it is, it's dating in the concept. It's just widening your pool. So networking, and so it's not a disagreement, but it's part of the sales stack, because the sale is the win, the ultimate win, where all this networking is done. The network is the friend you make that leads to the friend that you tell to, and so on, or the friend that recommends you to the other friend that you sell to. So yeah, we're both right.
How about other participants here? Maybe people like Chris, Carol, or you guys, what's your opinion?
So, hey guys, Chris here. So the way I think of this is, so just a quick intro. I have very little startup experience. I'm mostly from big corporations. The way I think of startup, I think the closest I got was when I finished my national service. I wanted to get into digital marketing. It was an era where there was no digital marketing. I created my own websites and stuff to prove results and to get sales and stuff. So my thinking may be very different. I feel that for a startup, the idea and the passion is very important. I want to get in a startup, but where I struggle is I don't have the big idea. I don't have the mission. How do you advise someone who doesn't have a mission in thinking about wanting to get in a startup, versus someone who has? Like, I imagine most of you guys are in a startup because you have a mission, you have something you want to do, that's why you're in it. But what about people who don't? How should they go into it? Or should they not?
Thanks. Hey, is this Christopher Howe?
Yep, that's right.
I still recognize your voice. How are you, man?
I'm good. So for the rest of the folks also, I think just to let you guys know, the only reason I know Paddy was when he started like was it his first or second startup where people were losing their PDAs and phones for some reason, and then he invented just a sticker for people to stick on the phone, and people actually bought it. So then I did like and for my degree I did a interview with him for a project to talk about his company and stuff. That was the first contact I had with Paddy.
Yeah, so you have revealed to everybody that I'm actually very old. It's a Zoom filter that make me look young. Yeah, okay. So moving on. I think one of the things that a lot of people always ask, I mean, startup is it can be seen as trendy, it can be seen as popular, but then again, there are a lot of dark sides of a startup. And it's somehow in the startup ecosystem, some folks actually turn it into, hey, it's a shameful thing that you give out your startup and then go back to look for a job. I mean, there's a lot of stigma on this. Like maybe a couple of decades ago, lots of people were thinking of, hey, it's actually quite stupid to give up a full-time job to start your own business. But these days, it has somehow flipped back into saying that, you give up your startup because of you run out of money, you burn all the investors' money, and then you should actually continue to run another startup and not just, give up and go look for a job. But my personally, I feel that I think there's no right or wrong, but I should say that not running a startup, it takes a lot from you. It really takes a lot from you. Not just mental. I mean, mental health is important, but even physically, your health, you probably lost a lot of things. And I don't see it wrong to go back. So I don't quite agree that it is a shameful thing to give up, to go back to look for a job. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Sorry, I think Paddy, I think Chris had a question which I think we didn't manage to answer, which is whether if you have no mission in life, you still enter a startup, right, Chris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I can address that question on that as well. So, Chris, whether you work for a startup or corporation is, in my opinion, a bit irrelevant. The question is, what do you want to make out of your own life in terms of, is family more important? If family is more important and you have a stable job and you're pretty sure that this job is going to be there until you retire, there's no reason why you need to jump and start startups because everybody says go ahead and do it because it seems like an exciting thing to do. But on the other hand, do recognize that these days iron rice bowl is probably a fallacy. Nobody has iron rice bowl. And the advantage of going to a startup is you can leverage on your skill sets to start something which you have total control over. How long you're going to work, how you're going to work. Granted, it's going to take a lot out of your personal time, but in return, how strong a rice bowl is, it is up to you then. How's your skill set going to directly translate into revenue? So I hope that addresses what you're asking. As to Paddy's question on whether it's a bad thing to go back to corporate, I would say nothing shameful about that, man. I mean, honestly speaking, if you can't cut it in a startup environment or your own business, it may not be your fault. It may not be a skill set. It could be the environment. It could simply because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Things like AI, things like the latest trending, like bubble tea, for instance. If you were in the high point of bubble tea, you go in, you may make money. But when it's a low point, no matter how you go about doing it, there's no way you can make money. So it's nothing shameful. In my opinion, do what you need to do to get your dollars, your dough, but at the same time, also focus on what's important to you in your life.
I think working
So
in a corporate.
on to
Yeah, sorry, Chris.
sorry, you go ahead first.
Yeah, I think the thing is we have been talking about working in startup is difficult, things like that. But actually working in some role in corporates, right, can be difficult also. It's just that it's what kind of like difficulties that you are actually facing, and then which one do you want to actually face at that point of time. Because I mean I do know people working in the company work long hours, even though they may not get the reward that they're supposed to actually get. Of course, it's a high risk, high reward thing. If you want to actually work in the startup, if you succeed, you have more control in how much you actually get. But while at the same time, actually working in some corporate, some role, right, it can be tough also. So I believe it's like
Choose your heart.
it's possible. Yeah.
Choose your heart.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris, back to you. Sorry.
So I just wanted to share, I do know of this guy who ran a startup, I think for 7 years. He wanted to create a software for stock traders. So basically he's creating a charting software. I think he tried doing it for 3 to 4 years. He bootstrapped, no self-funded, and then it didn't work out. He pivoted to setting up an investment-related academy. It didn't work out as well. So 7 years later, I think he shut down the company. He went back to the corporate. He started as working in another startup as a product manager for a year, and thereafter he moved into a big bank to be in their venture side. I imagine also to look for startups to fund. So I guess how I probably can look at it from my angle is there is relevant experience in running a startup, and that's probably why the big bank will hire him to still work on startup, but from a different angle. So it is probably the experience that you learn from startup is not useless. You can use it somewhere else, even in the corporate setting.
Running a
And that's
startup
it.
is never easy, to be honest. If you were to ask me, when I start all over again, I'll probably say no. I'll probably say no because because I think I got lucky partly is because of during that time, it just I just want to be my own boss. There's no such thing as fundraising, doing pitching, what elevator pitch or whatever. So when I first did my own so-called first business, it was around 2005. As what Chris mentioned, it was more true from experience. Lost some stuff, when on the plane from Singapore to New York. So lost some stuff, and then hey, maybe there's a better way to get back my lost stuff. And then somehow started some ideas, and then from there you pick it up and sew it off, make some money, and that's where also where the like what Michael said, that's where the startup boom comes in, and people start talking about putting money in. That was like, oh okay. So during my time was like, you just run a business, just want to make a living, that's it. But now these days it's like, if you have a great idea, you got good connections, network, and some of them probably even able to sell themselves very well, there are actually people willing to throw money at you. And then taking shares of a company that is literally worth nothing. So you just keep stacking on it. That hey, today is worth 1 million, tomorrow is worth another 10 million, that kind of stuff. And that was like, I mean, that's amazing, right? But these days the competition is so tough. And it's not about just hard work alone. So if you were to ask me, I won't start any startup today in today's world, because there are so many ways of making money that running a startup may not be the only way to make money. I mean, let's say like ChatGPT and a whole bunch of all this. But I'm not encouraging everybody to just give up. But what I'm saying is that it's the old school of thoughts and the new school of thoughts. It may not necessarily have to crash. but it's just that you just need to adapt rather than just adopt. We need to adapt. And there are many ways, you know. So to me, it's like it's a journey lah. It's a journey lah. Thanks.
I agree. I mean, I will say, I will give some advice to those who are on the call today. If you are in a corporate environment and you're thinking of what if I have to work or get a job in a startup, if you can, start your own side hustle, start your own side business, because that will give you the valuable end-to-end experience, the customer journey, the sales skills for you to convince a startup to take a chance on you, and you're not just a corporate, machine, power machine. On the other hand, if you are already in a startup, then focus on how you can, in a way, create processes, useful processes within your current company, because that will impress the big boys that you know what it takes to scale a business, rather than just being someone who's always firefighting all the time. So these are the two skills which personally help me get jobs left, right, within corporate and within startups, because what they're looking for is different in the different environment as well.
Yeah, I think problem-solving skill is very important, whether you are in a startup or corporation.
Yeah, I think that is a must. I circling back to what Michael said, I think sales skill is something that everybody should learn. Preferably when you just started primary school or secondary school. I mean, you should really learn how to sell. Not necessarily have to sell, but at least know how to get, the whole thought process clear. Because one of the things that I realized is that if you're coming from a corporate world, planning to start a own business, that it will take a while to shade off all those like all the red tapes. Because when you are like, okay, example, a very classic example, in startup it's always do first, then ask for forgiveness later. That's quite common, right? So do first, then ask for forgiveness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lead
So,
first. Okay.
yeah, sort of like, but whereas in the corporate world, you can't really do that. You can get fired easily. You have to go through, you have to go through all the red tapes and everything, and then once everything clear, then you start doing it. But in the startup environment, I think I'm not endorsing it, but I think for anyone who is from the corporate world, when you want to jump into a startup world, I think this can be quite a big culture shock. I said, hey, what? You mean you guys just do it first until the regulators come in? They said, yeah, it's a wild, wild west. Let's just do it first. When the regulators come in, invite you, sit down, then you suggest to them, and then perhaps, let's start a sandbox. Then, try to entice the government agencies. Hey, maybe we start a sandbox, and then we do something that's actually theoretically, legally, is actually illegal. But if somehow the government allow you to do it in the sandbox, it's not really illegal. So I think this is going to be quite a culture shock for a lot of people when they are in the startup or when they join a startup environment. Yeah, thanks.
And there are also many corporates, right? Running corporate innovation program, things like that. What do you think of it? Maybe Chris, I mean, when you're working in like, a big company, would you actually join this kind of like corporate innovation program, for staff?
So in a big startup, the closest was probably when I was in NTC Income. They did have this, but I did not take part in it. Partly because I think the timing kind of clashed. But it probably was also I wasn't in that mindset where I would take part in this kind of programs. So the answer is probably no. But I guess it probably was maybe not at the right time and right place. And also the team that I was in was probably a bit more traditional, and they were also not interested in this kind of programs. So I didn't have people who probably want to take part in all that stuff at the same time.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because there are some programs also may even need the employees who actually took part, right, to actually give out their salary as a result of like trying to actually spin off a startup within the corporation. but although it may be a good opportunity, to actually tap on the resources in the company itself. So you will probably able to find your first client for your startup.
I think it seems like quite a few brands have been doing that quite a lot lah. Like UOB, I mean, when they first started eFinLab, they actually allow or I mean, not just the bank, quite a lot of companies these days actually try to push not just entrepreneurship but also intrapreneurship to try to get those folks who are keen, who are interested, and then instead of just submitting some ideas through a piece of paper, they actually get them to join some corporate innovations, and from there they discover, hey, you know what, it may actually be worth a company to be spun off, and eventually to help to support. Because one of the things that I realized is that in the corporate world, you day in day out, in terms of innovations, it will actually take quite a while to get the internal team to come up with innovative ideas. So that's why sometimes they actually hire external parties to come in to work together with them and identify problems that may not be too big to solve now, but it's important to be solved to get themselves ready for the future. So I think it can be quite a good steps for people who try to look into, hey, how does the startup life actually is to be somewhere in between. Yeah, what do you guys think?
Penny, sorry, could you repeat your question?
No, I'm saying that, for example, you don't really have to give up your full-time job to join a startup. Yeah, because nowadays there's quite a lot of big companies. They actually have this corporate innovation. They actually get third party to come in to provide trainings and to train you to think like an entrepreneur. But it's more in the environment of a corporate world. But I mean more of an environment in the company lah. So yeah, actually practicing entrepreneur, but it's actually beneficial to the company and also to your career. So it's sort of like a in between of working in a corporate world, but yet at the same, working for corporate, but yet at the same time able to adapt or adopt some of these strategies, some of these planning, some of these practices for a startup lah.
I think it's a great initiative because it gives you, like you said, the best of both worlds. Just being mindful that sometimes trying to do both your corporate role as well as having an innovation role, it does affect your ability to meet your KPIs, I would say. So again, great move, but you must also think about how much time you want to invest in this area, because time is limited. Everybody's 24 hours. And regardless of how you spend it, it's still going to go 24 hours. So if you want to do both, then be sure that something has to go, which usually is family time.
I've seen it done in a number of organizations in the form of either they start this innovation hub, they create an accelerator, the large corporation creates an accelerator, and coinciding with that also does a buying spree of smaller startups. Everything dies. Because the idea is, the startups who sell, we can sell upwards to the buying company. Nothing gets sold because they expect that the sale will be easy because it's easy if they get referred to the procurement department and they die.
Michael, what did you say? Everybody what?
Everyone dies. All the organization.
Dies.
Yeah. The startups in the accelerator die. The purchased startups die. No one makes money. It's a massive, massive loss for everyone. And I've seen it happen to at least 3 national organizations in the Philippines over the past decade. So
yeah.
So I mean, maybe it's just part of the capitalist Darwinism of it all. But yeah, it's usually the large organization has a lot of set ways of doing things, and the startup is very fast. They need things done fast. and if they don't move fast, they run out of money. In the larger organization, things move a lot, and it just doesn't work. They can't book meetings. It's like they have an expectation that the sale would come easy because they're selling internally. They're the big internal client right out there. And then after all the work they've put in to sell to the big internal client, they're gonna ask, where are your sales? Because there were, and then weren't we supposed to be selling to you? No, you need traction and all the usual metrics. But
I think the reliance in the parent company or reliance in the company who actually did the sponsor can be pretty bad.
But that was the pitch. Why join us? Because we can, you can sell to us. That's part of the pitch, right? That's why okay, we'll join you. Sounds suspicious, but if this means a real win in both, a mutual win for us, why not? So the expectations made, a lot of effort is, and then meetings, and it doesn't work. We almost joined one, so we gave a soft, we flirted with one. And when we saw that the efforts of the recently hired innovator guy inside of us, and we saw that that guy has absolutely no clout, has no power in the large company. Well, no, we're not going to do it because that guy is not going to lead. His networking means nothing. He will connect us to end user companies within their organization that can clearly benefit from us, but none of it leads to any real possibility of sales. Nope. We just, and before we know it, his boss resigned, and then he has to resign, and we almost gave up equity for that.
Wow. But actually, it can be quite risky also for a startup to join this kind of like corporate innovation program. Because there are also a lot of cases whereby just by joining the program, they may give out too many things that probably legality may not be able to cover, and that's how you actually lost a lot of like IP or secret recipe within the whole company itself. Yeah. So it may not be good. Yeah. But anyway, we are coming to 9 over here in Singapore. I guess Darius also need to leave. I think it's very good to actually know like new people here, like Michael, May, Christopher. Actually have been seeing your comment in other groups that we actually have in Facebook, things like that. So I actually know who you are. Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much. To have this very great evening speaking. We will be having this session pretty often. So basically, this session will also be listed out in this place called Startup Storm. Okay. So I'm not sure whether you guys are member to it. So there will be listed over there, and there will be more and more topics listed there. Actually, in fact, next week we have this panel discussion where we actually invited a few people, one even from New York, US, to actually share a little bit about marketing, in things like Gen Z nowadays, right? What are they thinking of? If to market to Gen Z, this population is a completely different kind of like target market that people may have a lot of questions on. Okay, so or even Gen Alpha, things like that. So she worked in Spotify. So and while at the same time also venturing into their own new business. So I think will be good if you actually can join us also next week for a panel discussion. So we have a few members speaking next week. Okay.
Justin, just out of curiosity, where are you based?
Singapore. Paddy and myself, we are actually running the same company.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I go there pretty often now.
Yeah, she's my boss.
Singapore.
Yeah.
Oh, she's your boss.
She's my boss.
He has been going around saying that. But anyway, May, where are you from?
I'm KL.
KL. Oh,
Yeah.
we have office in KL, so we actually.
Okay. I'll be down in Singapore in March.
Let's catch up when you're here. Yeah.
Yes. I'm
In
there for an
Singapore.
event, so yeah. a premium gift event.
Great. Okay, so
Yeah.
thanks for everyone's time here today, and I hope that everybody learned something. To share and to learn also. I think the more you interact with different types of people, the more information that we can exchange and get to know each other a bit more. So yeah, by the way, before you leave, if you would like to leave, if you like to put up your contact on the LinkedIn, just feel free to add to each other. And otherwise, have a good evening, and then we see you guys again. Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening.
Right.
Thank
Enjoy your
you.
week.
Bye,
Enjoy the rest of the
everyone.
week.
Bye-bye.